Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about how you can actually deal with aggression in a community aquarium. So sometimes in community aquariums, there can be a little bit of aggression between certain species of fish. That could come around for a variety of reasons. It could be some fish are getting ready to breed. It could be that maybe you just don't have compatible tank mates. It could be, like I said, literally a number of reasons. So for today's video, I've got 6 simple things you can do to actually help minimize that aggression if there is any. So yeah, without any further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video with the first tip on our list. So as for tip number 1, this one comes before you should even be having any aggression, and that's making sure you have compatible tank mates in a community aquarium. So I briefly mentioned this just before, and I mean, this one is pretty obvious. You do want to make sure that your tank mates can live together safely. So obviously you're not going to keep things like, I don't know, like a flower horn with neon tetras. I mean, that's a pretty obvious one. So you will definitely need to do a little bit of research before you set up your community tank. Most tropical aquarium fish can go together just because most of them do come from similar areas. So most South American species generally go well together. So that's things like Corydoras, angelfish, some dwarf cichlids. Most of them are pretty compatible. It's just when you start mixing, say, South American fish with Australian fish or Australian fish with African fish, that's when you can start to get a little bit more aggression in your aquarium just because they're not really used to similar species. So yeah, that's just a quick tip. I mean, this one's super simple. Before you even get fish for your aquarium, you should just quickly check if they are compatible, and if they are, then they should be perfectly fine in a community tank. Moving on to the next tip on our list, it's making sure you're providing plenty of hiding spaces. So hiding spaces could be things like plants. You could throw in caves, like coconut caves. You could throw in rocks, any sort of hardscape like that. Just making sure you have plenty of places for individual fish to go and hide away from other fish if they're just feeling a little bit stressed or if they're being picked on a little bit. Lots of separate hiding spaces are also very good, just because if you do have territorial fish, say like an apisto, they can find their own little hiding space and set up there as a pair, and they won't really venture out too far from that. So it'll mean that there's no aggression between them and, say, another fish that's set up on the other side of the tank. So just making sure you're providing plenty of those visual barriers is definitely important, and it's definitely another great tip to help minimize aggression in your aquarium. Moving on to the next tip on our list, again, this one goes with the first one. You do want to do this before you even put fish in your aquarium, and that's making sure you have adequate tank size. So fish can get aggressive in smaller spaces. Number one, they're just stressed, and number two, there's just not enough space in the aquarium for them to go and hide away from other fish. So you don't want to be cramming in like 50 neon tetras into a 20-liter aquarium and chucking in a few apistos in there as well. That's obviously not going to go well whatsoever. There will definitely be some aggressive behavior. So community aquariums do need to be bigger than just, say, an aquarium with 2 species of fish in there, just because obviously you're going to have a lot more species of fish, maybe 3 to 5 different species in that one tank, which means they all need their own separate space throughout the aquarium. So you do need to make sure, if you are going to keep a community aquarium, you want ample space so that all of your fish can swim around freely. They're not running into each other all the time, and they're not seeing each other all the time. Just because if they are constantly running into each other or just seeing each other, there can be a little bit more aggressive behavior. So yeah, with that being said, making sure you have ample tank space is definitely another tip to minimize aggression in your community aquarium. Moving on to our next tip on our list, this one's super important that I think a lot of people actually forget, and that's making sure you have appropriate male to female ratios. So this does vary on what sort of fish you're keeping, if you're wanting to breed them or not, or if you're just having them in your aquarium for a bit of fun. But for the most part, most species of fish, you're going to want more females than males. And the reason for that is because, number one, males are literally always trying to breed, particularly live bearers. Male guppies literally want to breed all the time. So you want to make sure that there's enough females in there to sort of spread the breeding out, I guess. You don't want one to just be hammered all night. You need a few in there so that, you know, they get shared around a bit. And on top of that, males are usually the more aggressive fish in certain species. So because of that, if you're just having a bunch of males together, they can fight each other a lot, particularly if you have, say, like 3 male guppies and 2 female guppies. Not only are those 2 female guppies going to be absolutely beaten, but the males are going to be constantly fighting each other to breed with particular females. So making sure you do have an appropriate male to female ratio is definitely important. In my opinion, with most species of fish, I usually try and keep 1 to 2 extra females. So I'll usually keep things like trios or 5 fish, I don't know what that's called, and I'll have, say, 1 male, 2 females, or 2 males, 3 females. Those are usually the best ratios in my opinion, but obviously, like I said, it does depend on what sort of fish you have. Some prefer more males than females. But yeah, with that being said, making sure you have a correct male to female ratio is definitely another important tip if you want to minimize aggression in your aquarium. Moving on to the next tip on our list, it's making sure you're feeding your fish enough. So there's a few reasons you want to be feeding your fish enough and reducing the competition in your aquarium. So number one, if you're not feeding your fish enough, the more dominant fish will actually get the food, and that'll leave like the other little shrimpy ones to the side, and they won't actually get food, which means they can just become a lot more weak and easy to pick on for the other fish. But if you're not providing enough food, there's going to be minimal resources, which means your fish are going to be competing for that food a lot more. So they'll be chasing each other around the tank just to get a little bit of food, and they'll have little conflicts when it comes to feeding time. So what I always say in my videos is try to feed your fish as much as they can eat in 2 to 3 minutes. And then if you've got any leftover food in there, just suck that out, and that just ensures you're not having any ammonia spikes in your aquarium. But 2 to 3 minutes is pretty much the longest time that your fish will eat. So if you're feeding them once a day for 2 to 3 minutes, that's perfectly fine. They'll live happily. Now, also in a community aquarium, when it comes to feeding, you want to make sure each of your fish is getting an ample amount. And this can become a little bit challenging when you've got fish at like different layers of your aquarium. So you may have fish that are right at the top, which get the food first and eat all of it before it actually sinks to the bottom for your bottom dwellers. Or you may have some super fast fish that once again eat all the food before things like slow fish or shy fish actually come out, and they just get the little crumbs left over. So yeah, making sure you're feeding enough and all your fish are getting enough food is definitely another tip at reducing aggression in your aquarium. Moving on to the final tip on our list. This one only really applies for a few different species of fish, and that's using tank dividers and just getting your fish used to each other. So say you have a pair of fish, maybe like a pistos, and one of your fish dies, so maybe the female dies, and you get a new female to go with that original male to create a new pair. Sometimes fish can be very picky and they will just pick on that new female a lot. So what you can do is put in a little tank divider, or what I like to do is get a big clear water bottle, put a bunch of holes in it, fill it up with the tank water, and just let that sit in your aquarium. You can put the new fish in there. That'll just get your fish used to being around each other, and once they sort of stop showing aggression to one another, you can open up that bottle and let the new fish out, and hopefully there shouldn't be any aggression after that. Sometimes, like I said, it can just take your fish a little bit of getting used to each other before they're not actually aggressive. Or another thing you could do is get like a tank divider that's a particular size, and you just put this in the maybe corner of your aquarium, and it's just the right size for a vulnerable fish to slip through. So say you've got, I don't know, some aggressive cichlids in with some smaller aquarium fish, which you shouldn't really be keeping them together anyway, but say you've got maybe angelfish and some tetras, which are usually great together. Maybe your angelfish are breeding and they're particularly nippy. You can put a little tank divider in that only the tetras can get through, and that'll just give the tetras a safe space to go if they are being picked on a little bit. So yeah, with that being said, using tank dividers and just getting your fish used to one another is definitely very important if you don't want any aggression in your community aquarium. So that is actually going to bring us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope this video helps a few of you guys out. If you did enjoy today's video and you haven't done so already, please make sure to go down and subscribe, and while you're down there, smash the like button and comment your thoughts on today's video. I always love going down there and reading them all, and I try to reply back to as many comments as I can. Also, if you haven't done so already, make sure to go check out my website, aussiefishkeeping.com. We're going to have a big Boxing Day sale coming up on Boxing Day. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all so much for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you all in that next video.